my last point, Zay, is the punch resistance was still there. The power wasn't there anymore. And when you're an older guy like Oleksandr, you're gonna lose the power. The mobility was okay, but it wasn't great like how it was in the past. Those are the things that's gonna go first. The power, the mobility, but the jab was still there, and the punch resistance was still there, and that's why this fight went the distance.
I think, and I said this off air, but I'm gonna say it again. I wouldn't be surprised if Canelo comes out and says, "I want to fight David Benavidez." For the simple
Well, I
fact
don't
of
know
what
about all
what
that,
we
bro.
saw today, in this fight was that Benavidez didn't have the gas tank when it came down to it. Imagine that was a different fighter he fought against today. Benavidez would have been out. He possibly would have got knocked out between the 8, 9, 10 round when he was gassed. Clearly gassed. That man was fatigued beyond belief. That could have been a knockout round for somebody against a Benavidez. If now that people know that he has a gas tank, that volume it slows down he sees visibly that the punches that he was throwing that entire fight was not working, and we saw it. He was visibly in disbelief and fatigued. There was nothing else he could do for that remainder of the fight that could convince him that he could knock this guy out, because he was trying. We can't say he didn't try. He tried to knock this guy out for very long periods of the damn fight. Couldn't get it done. Couldn't even stifle him. Couldn't even make him dazed. Like it looked crazy. Every punch, I'm talking about every punch that looked like, oh, it got him clean. The guy just kept moving forward. He was like, all right, what's next? All right, what's it? And I'm telling you, Canelo was like, all right, if that we could set this up now, because now I see what I could work with. All Canelo had to see was what he could work with in a fight. That's all he needed. And watch Canelo now have the courage and be like, all right, let's set this fight up. Now we can fight, because he just needed Benavidez to show a chink in his armor. That's all Canelo ever does. He sees just something to make him go, all right, let me go fight him. And I think that may be it. And I feel like that was the setup. The setup wasn't for Oleksandr to go in there and beat Benavidez. It was just so that Oleksandr could expose something in David Benavidez. And I think I felt like Canelo was a mastermind of that. I believe Canelo was watching this fight laser focused, notepad in hand, trainers all around him, watching this fight intensively, just so he can make sure this is the next fight he gets. It's a sickening conspiracy theory, but I feel like Canelo is that mastermind to try to make that happen, so he could stop hearing about David Benavidez on his heels.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think we're more likely to see Canelo and Clarissa Shields before we see Canelo and Benavidez. With all due respect, okay? I don't think Canelo wants any parts of David Benavidez. But if this was a fight where he may have saw something that he could exploit, and we get the fight off of that, then hey, I'll take it, right? Because I think Benavidez will destroy Canelo. Like, I don't see a world where Canelo wins that fight, with all due respect. I'm trying to see that world. Yes, we know, he has a lot of power, and we get that, but he's really one-dimensional. He's a guy that loads up on every single shot. Benavidez has a full arsenal. He could throw the combinations. For every one punch loading up that Canelo's trying to throw, David Benavidez is going to throw 5, 6, 7. So I don't see a world, unless it's a stoppage, where we go to the cards and we hear and still Canelo. Like, I don't see that unless the judges is in his pocket, which clearly for the majority of the career it was. Okay, like I think personally, looking at David Benavidez in this fight, making his lightweight debut, we had to assume that it was going to be some adversity. Like, we cannot use the example of him beating smaller guys, talented guys that can box their ass off. Andre could box his ass off. Plant could box his ass off, but they are very much smaller than David Benavidez. We can't use that as the framework of expectations moving up to a higher weight class with guys that are, more heavier, more bigger, more powerful. It's not going to be the same simulation. It was never going to be Oleksandr getting dominated and ragged like how Andre was or Plant was. I could never see that happening, right? It was always going to be a testy fight for David Benavidez. And if this showed me anything, is that David Benavidez, he can go through adversity. He lost a couple rounds. I thought he won the round 12, right? Because remember, I said I had Oleksandr winning 8, 9, and 10, but I thought he won round 12 as well. So I took a lot more from David Benavidez on a positive note, even though there's some negatives, right? Because David Benavidez really didn't have to go through adversity other than maybe dropping a couple rounds to Caleb Plant and just finding that way of cutting off the ring. And once he did that, he dominated the second half. He had to go through a little bit more adversity. I thought that Oleksandr was landing some of the shots, even though the pop wasn't still there at his age. He still landed them. He still took them well, and vice versa. I thought each, fighter punch resistance was pretty good. And should he stay at 175? Right now, I believe he's going to be the interim in two different weight classes, 168 and 175. He could get the winner of Bivol and Arthur Beterbiev. Now, Zay, if you want to say that based on what you saw tonight, in regards to David Benavidez, is telling you to stay away from Arthur Beterbiev and Bivol, I could co-sign that. And maybe going back to 168 may be the plausible move to maybe fight a David Morrell. Because like I said, I can see Canelo and Clarissa Shields before I see Canelo and David Benavidez. With all due respect, Canelo wants no parts of that guy. He's threatened by this guy's success, and he doesn't want to pass the torch to this guy. He'd rather pass the torch to Munguia because he know he's going to beat Munguia. Okay? And so back to my point. Yeah. If you think he should stay at 175 or leave 175 and go back to 168 because you feel he has that advantage, even though it's going to be harder for him to make 168, then I could kind of co-sign that because if he fights this way against Arthur Beterbiev, he might lose. So I could concur with that point if that's where you're trying to go.
I mean, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go there because it was really my take. My take was just that I feel like Canelo was just on a prowl. He's just trying to find ways to make sure his name stays relevant in boxing, and he's realizing just knocking out these dudes or fighting these dudes that are not really at his level is only deteriorating that legacy. It's adding to the resume, it's adding to the boxing record per se, but it's not elevating the resume that we know Canelo Alvarez being this pound for pound fighter, fighting anybody. And I think now that Benavidez, after showing that kind of performance he just had, and it wasn't a terrible performance, but it wasn't the Mexican monster that everyone is fearing. And I think Canelo can play off that. And I think also that 175 division is kind of scary for anybody, not just Benavidez, but anybody. I just think Bivol and Beterbiev is going to be a different story when you fight against it. Those are power punchers.
Yeah.
Those are guys that give you.
Even Bivol got his mojo back with his last knockout victory, so he's at a level where he's at the highest of his confidence. Mm-hmm. And Beterbiev, even though he's at the tail end of his career, you don't want to get hit with one of those shots. Respectfully,
please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.